Hi, everybody, and welcome to this Coach's Corner special edition of the Dr. Z and J-Dub podcast. Thanks for joining us across all of our social media channels today. And as always, our podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Our guest today on Coach's Corner is Ted Hotaling, who is our men's basketball coach at the University of New Haven. And Dr. Z, we are thrilled to have Ted back. He was one of the earliest guests we ever had on our podcast way back in May.
Well, he's an easy guest to have. He's done, multiple interviews in his life and had a really fun tournament run this year that we could talk about over and over and over again. And, that triple overtime game and so on and so forth. So, Ted also is an avid reader. And so he and I have a lot of he shares books with me and vice versa. And he also has a Friday email that I look forward to every Friday. I haven't got it yet, by the way, Ted, when you come out here, but does a great review of articles and books for that week. And I steal from that all the time.
I think that's a perfect introduction. Let's bring Ted out from the green room. Again, he's a friend of the show. He's been on this is his second time being on. Ted, it's great to see you again, first of all. Second of all, what is this Friday email you send out, and why has Dr. Z not gotten it yet?
I'm late with my assignment. Sometimes workouts get in the way and life gets in the way. And if it's in by 11:59, I'm lucky sometimes. But you know what? I read a lot. It's a way of sharing. I actually started just with alums to start and just with some colleagues that are in the basketball industry. It was just my way of trying to share and give something. And actually, it's made me better along the way. So it's something I work on throughout the week. So instead of watching TV, I'll find a topic to learn about. I'll have a conversation with Dr. Z, and that will lead to an idea and maybe explore a little bit more, or, speak to a lot of just generally different people. A lot of it's with leadership, some of it's with basketball. I know Dr. Z likes the football articles. I sent them out. Bill Snyder several weeks ago, who I've always been a fan of, even before Dr. Z got on board here at New Haven. I've read a lot about him and marvel at the work he did at Kansas State. I'm always really marveled by people who do really well in tough jobs, and Bill Snyder definitely did that. But just something I share on Fridays and get a lot of good feedback, and actually have some people share information that I send out as well. But just something that's it's been going on about 4.5 years now, if you can believe that. But there's been times on the road in the summer where I have to stop at Barnes and Noble late at night to fire one off, and but it's always well worth it at the end.
It's funny, J-Dub, it'll pop up on my, iPhone. And Ted's right. He's got full Fridays, so sometimes it comes later than sooner. And it will grab me as, it really is Friday. You start today, every Friday, it's a Friday, but it doesn't always register. It's kind of a benchmark now for me to weekend. So if this later he sends it, the later my weekend begins. It's business.
No one knows what day it is right now. That's the problem, right? I think that hasn't become an easy thing to decipher anymore. What day it is a week?
Yeah.
So, it makes it a little easier.
Ted, for those who are just getting to know you, I mean, we did this before, but I think it's important for those who are tuning in, who are seeing you and hearing you for the first time. Please give them an idea of who you are, your background, and how you ended up at the University of New Haven.
Sure. I'm the son of a coach. My dad coached multiple sports at the high school level, was a fourth grade teacher. My mom was a first grade teacher. So, my life has been around schools and around coaching, around players. I was going to be a history teacher and a high school coach. Sat down with my parents, played at the University of Albany, and then played overseas for several years, and sat down with my parents, and they told me to quit the teaching part, maybe just do the coaching side. And got to work for a guy named Steve Clifford, who many know is the head coach of the Orlando Magic, and still a mentor of mine today, and follow his teams very closely. So went from Adelphi to as a volunteer to Yale with James Jones, who actually coached me at the University of Albany. Have a 30-year relationship with him, and Doc Sowers, as we were talking about before we got on this call. Spent 1 year as an assistant at the University of New Haven for Jay Young, who's now the head coach at Fairfield. Was a great experience. Then went back to Yale full-time for 4 years, and then moved to Kentucky. So lived in Kentucky for 5. My children were born there. My wife now, who we're engaged to, I told her we're moving to Kentucky. We had to fly back to get married and then fly back to Kentucky. And then luckily, when this job opened up in 2010, was fortunate enough to come back and be able to be the head coach here. And been here now for 10 years, which is going on year 11 right now.
I'm not anywhere more that amount of time except grade school.
Yeah, yeah, it's unique in this profession, right? It's hard to stay in one place at any one time, but this has been a great place for me and my family. We love the Northeast. I think the school is really, as we all know, it's just growing and developing each and every year. So it's been fun to be a part of that. And now with Dr. Z on board, I think the athletic department's actually heading in that direction as well, where there's a lot of things on the horizon, a lot of things to be excited about. I know our players are excited and our alums, but yeah, this has been a great tenure here, and I think actually the best is yet to come.
What's it been like to be back on the court with your team?
It's been a godsend. I tell you, it's it's been hard being away from people in general. As a basketball coach, those are the best. That's the best part of your day, right? Is being on the floor and being a teacher and being a coach. It's why we do it to begin with. But I think it's been good for our players just to interact with each other and interact with the coaches. We've tried to treat September and October a little bit what it would be like in a summer workout. So want guys to be excited to come to the gym, trying to make them better players more than we're trying to make ourselves a better team. And just trying to improve and stretch their games a little bit. Even got our 7'2" guy shooting threes, which they'll probably be cut off by about November, but at least, in September and October, we'll let them feel good about some jump shots right now.
J-Dub, it's fun to walk in the building, and a team is usually in the gym now between all of our indoor sports. But this morning was men's basketball, and Coach didn't even see me. I just kind of lurked in the corner for a while just to get my fill. And our 7'2" guy was in there, which is always fun to watch. But so were some of our veterans. And if there's anything I were to say about our basketball team and what Ted does, they're just a great group of young guys. And my first memory of them was my first week on the job here, and I went in the gym, and each of them independently stopped the drill work they were doing. They probably just wanted to get out of drill work and came over and gave me a high five or a hug or a hand. And I'm like, dang, I've been in a lot of places where that just doesn't happen. And they are very engaging, outgoing, and embrace you. And that makes it easy to want to be for them and with them and around them.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, that's, I think it's become part of our recruiting. And we all know this talent is such an attractive thing, right? It's, you see talent, and in basketball, it's easy to see, right? You can go down to the park and probably pick out the best player. And I think when you're a young coach, it's always about getting talent. And as you get older, you realize that the person is also very important. So I would love to take credit for all that, Dr. Z, but unfortunately I can't because, our kids have just been well raised, and I think that's part of the system we put in place is to find good people that make good decisions, kids that try hard in the classroom and then want people to live basketball. So we're very fortunate we've had those guys, and we're never perfect in that regard, but what a great group we have right now. And it's nice that you say that because I do think it's a tribute to the upraising they've had and the family atmosphere they've had before they've gotten here. And now they've just embraced, our family dynamic as well.
Ted, I'm glad you mentioned recruiting because I know a lot of people in our audience are going to want to know this. Number one, how is recruiting going? And number two, I've always been curious, when you're out on the recruiting trail, whether it's, in person or virtually now, what's the message you give to families of potential recruits? Why should they send their young sons to come play for us at the University of New Haven?
Yeah, the recruiting I think has been pretty unique, but I've actually enjoyed it. I think the one thing that the pandemic has brought to light is Zoom, right? Zoom and facial, seeing a face on a phone call. So much before this was getting on the phone or texting. With Major, I FaceTime Major 40 days in a row. And he and I got to see each other while we talked. And that wasn't something we had done in our program before. And I think it's going to be something that we use moving forward just to get a little bit more familiarity and just to create a stronger bond. So I think in some ways we've reevaluated some things that are brought to light, and I think will make us better in the future. It's been hard to evaluate the talent part of it, mainly through video. I don't think you always can make good decisions doing that. So relying on conversations with prep school coaches and junior college coaches and high school coaches, but that's been the challenging part. With us, we want to meet expectations with the student athletes that we recruit. And we say this all the time, right? Expectations are premeditated resentments. We're not going to promise you something that we're not. We're not going to promise you a starring role. We're going to promise that we're going to treat you with respect. We're going to teach you the game of basketball. You're going to be in an environment with other good human beings that We're all trying to go in the same direction. But I think that our families appreciate the fact that we're very transparent and very honest. We're very transparent with what we offer as far as facilities, coaching staff, players, all those things. And I think when they get here, their expectations are met. And we always want guys who want to be here. And I tell our assistant coaches all the time, if we have to beg someone to come to the University of New Haven, then we are barking up the wrong tree. You know, Devontae Thomas wants to be here. Quayshawn Lane wants to be here. And when you have that dynamic, they are able to recruit kids further down the line, right? And when kids come to campus and see that, I think it becomes a special place. So, you know, it makes it a lot easier when you're honest and transparent and you remember what you talk about. And then when they get here, their expectations are met. And I think that's really been our pitch, and I think it's worked well. And we've been fortunate enough to have some really good players come through the program just with that message.
Ted, when we had you on back in May, we talked about the concept of stoicism. Yeah. Please educate and enlighten us about stoicism and how it plays an important role as Dr. Z goes back to his bookshelf. Yeah. And he knows right where that book is. There it is.
Yeah, Dr. Z gets it. Yeah. So, well, I read Marcus Aurelius Meditations, and I don't know if life-changing is the right word, but it really altered the way I think about things and think about things in a neutral way, and not always be frazzled by outcomes that aren't maybe what you wanted. I'll use an example. When we shoot in the gym and a kid gets down on himself for missing 3 shots in a row, we talk about next shot, neutral thinking, move beyond the miss. And it's just something that I think is very important for my life. I think it's important to relay that to our kids, how we handle success, how we handle disappointment, whether that's one play, one game, one season, I think carries with you the rest of your life. And I think with neutral thinking, you're never too high or too low. And I think that's where we're just always trying to be. I know I'm trying to be there too. Sometimes I'll fall short with that, right? As a coach, I told a group this morning, I was a little frustrated with some of the things, and my frustration is essentially telling them I don't know how to coach you, right? And then sometimes I have to take a step back and say, hey, these are young players, right? Freshmen that I need to teach better. So it's just a way of thinking about things in a neutral way. And again, just being even keel and being consistent in your approach every day and with every person that you encounter.
You know, Ted just used that phrase, neutral thinking. And the first time I'd really heard it described in the way he used it was in one of his Friday newsletters, and called him and said, wow, this is great. This goes along with so many of these other concepts I've been taught. And I've shared it with my own kids, my daughter in particular. We get in discussions like this, and there's something about just finding neutral, especially during this.
Yep.
I think we if you're not careful and you watch too much news, you get down here in the lows. Well, I think some of us work too hard, particularly in athletics, always being up, 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 up. And when it comes to performance, being up, 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 up is not always the way to go. I heard once that a good pregame speech in football is worth, getting hit in the head really good. That's out, and you got to play. Right. And so if you were planning on going on this high energy, it doesn't work that way. You got to be in that neutral zone to be able to be assignment correct and fundamentally sound, in my opinion.
Yep, absolutely.
Dr. Z, it seems like stoicism goes hand in hand with longevity, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if the creators of both ever met, but I'd have to do some research as to when both concepts, Aurelius and Seneca and those guys were at a certain time period. And I'd have to go back to some of their other Latin brethren to see when Nocepi was emerged. But it really does. It's Coach was saying, flush it. Well, now I begin. They're the same thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Coach, I know we're running low on time here, but I wanted to ask you this before we wrap things up. What's the relationship like with the alums of our basketball program, and why is it so important that those alums should still be involved with the current players in the program, whether it's donating money or time or helping kids find jobs or internships or whatever it might be?
Yeah. So this is the 59th season of men's basketball. We're the first program at the University of New Haven. Don Ormrod, who I think was 124 and 22 in his career. So Listen, I have an easy job. I'm never going to actually compete against that. So I've already put that way away. But yeah, the 1961-62 season was the first season at the University of New Haven with athletics. We still have several of those members of that team come back. to the golf outing, to basketball games, who reach out and watch the games when they're streamed. So it has a long running history. We have the all-time leading scorer in New England history in Gary Liberatore, scored over 3,000 points in his career. There's a long-standing tradition of New Haven basketball. In the 80s, they went to the NCAA tournament several times with great players. Stu Grove did a great job with this program and had a lot of great players. We're trying to be continuation of all of that. And I think when our alums come to campus and they see our players, I think they see themselves as 18, 19, 20, 20-year-olds. And I know that they had great experiences here, and I hope that they're giving. They know that it goes towards the experience of our student athletes. And we've been very lucky to have guys give back. There's still more needed, obviously, always, especially in this day and age. But for the length of time that we've been in existence, we've had great support from our former players and coaches. And we just want to do them proud with people we bring in and the performance we put on the floor. And I think we've accomplished that, but still more to do, and still more troops to rally here to kind of get to that next step with the program.
Ted Hotaling, our men's basketball coach here at the University of New Haven. Ted, as always, we appreciate your time, and we hope to see you on campus real soon, and look forward to that Friday email every week.
Right. I'll put you on the list.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ted. I'll add that to all the reading I have to do already, right, Dr. Z?
Yeah.
Dr. Z, your thoughts, final thoughts here real quick as we wrap up here on Coach's Corner with Ted.
Yeah, I could talk to Ted for hours. And it was all I could do not to keep going down the rabbit hole of books and philosophies and things like that. I really, really enjoy that about him, just as I really enjoy his team. And, he kept putting it off on their parents. And the parents, obviously these young men have great parents and been raised well. But Ted attracts those kind of young men and has created that culture. And it's really fun to be around him. And, we didn't get into Ted's X's and O's, but he is he's a real student of the game. And that's a whole nother conversation about how he sees the game and how he teaches it, and how and watching him coach, I really enjoy watching him do that as well. So always enjoy it. Wish we had more time for this, because we'll have to bring him back for another longer podcast in the future so we can show some of those other sides of him to the fan base.
No question. I was just impressed you knew right where that book of Stoicism was, right over your shoulder.
A little scary. These books, if you watch on podcasts, they lean different directions because these books get used.
Yep. Who needs the Dewey Decimal System, right? We get the Dr. Z system.
Yeah, right.
Our thanks again to Ted Hotaling, our men's basketball coach, for joining us here on this special Coach's Corner edition of the Dr. Z and J Dub podcast.